Well, welcome back to At the Table. We are finishing up our series on generosity, but that doesn't mean it's the end, not at all. As a reminder, I'm Stefan, and I'm here again with Sean. I don't often do this, but if you didn't watch last week's video with Sean, you definitely need to go back and watch that. There's a lot to be taken from it, as well as from our conversation with Melissa the week before. And in all of this season of generosity, we have learned so much. We're going to talk about more of that in a minute. But last week we learned it was Sean's first time coming to the North Carolina State Fair, and we're outside of it now. We've experienced it in at least some small way, mostly food, but that's still pretty good. And I just wanted to ask, what'd you think? Your first time?
Pretty overwhelming for an introverted person like myself.
Introverted?
Yeah.
Oh, you and I, we could be friends. I'm also an introvert.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
So like seeing an ostrich burger, what is that?
So you weren't immediately attracted to the ostrich
I was not.
burger.
I just like saw this big ostrich running at me and like, gotta get out of the way.
That makes sense.
But it was pretty incredible seeing all of these different food options, the different rides, and all the smiling faces of people enjoying the fair. Yeah.
The state fair is something that we thought would be just a fascinating idea to contrast a little bit, because the state fair is in many ways more about excess than it is about what we might think of general generosity. And yet we hope that some of the emotions that are captured in this space can be something that we look for in being a part of generosity in our world. We want it to be colorful. We want it to be exciting. We want it to be something that draws you in and wants you to be a part of it. You see it from a distance and I want to go there, that kind of feeling. And this idea of moving from an understanding of stewardship, which for many of us in the church, I imagine probably has become a little bit stale. And that's okay for words to become stale. It's okay for us to take a little time and look for something fresh. And so to move from this language of stewardship, rather, where oftentimes it's maybe a little bit more about me and what I have and my abilities to give, and generosity to think and to wonder, to be in a state of awe, if you will, about the possibilities going forward. And I hope that we get to a place where generosity is filled with so much awe and wonder and possibilities that we can't even imagine the greatness that will come from it as God participates in our work. So I know that you and I have talked about that a little bit. But one of the things as we're kind of coming to a close of this season, and again, this is a close of the season, this is not a close of generosity. It should be the beginning of generosity for many of us. For me, in many ways, as I've learned and spent some time talking about it with some wonderful friends, and Melissa and Ray and Sean, has been that generosity has way more depth about it, way more intentionality to it than we might have imagined when we first started this space. And so Sean and I did a little bit of work on the way over, and we just made a quick list of some of the bullet points that were surprising to us in our conversations. We'll kind of ping pong back and forth about some of those ideas that we thought were just vitally important.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one that comes to mind is generosity begets generosity.
Yeah.
So it's this idea that one act kind of expands outwards, and there's sort of this infinite ripple effect of how one small act can change the world in a sense.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or change a generation.
Exactly.
From a great-grandparent down to a great-grandchild.
Exactly.
That's right. Change the trajectory of a family direction. That's a beautiful thing.
It is. It is.
Generosity beginning generosity seems like something that is so natural to this process. And I feel like I've been a part of it in some small ways. But generosity, in a second point, it can be difficult to receive at first. Kind of like we talked about the state fair, if you don't know what it is, it probably feels odd and strange to you if you were first experienced. What is this wild thing? Generosity can be that for many people. There's a lot of vulnerability in it. There's a lot of ways in which you receiving generosity may feel as though it comes with some extra baggage of what's going on in your life. But we do hope and pray that generosity, as it's consistently practiced, is something that breaks down barriers between people.
Absolutely. It allows us to see our humanity and, in fact, God in every one of us. And I think that's such a humbling thing, but such a beautiful thing at the same time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, what's one of our other points?
All right. Another point is that generosity is attractive. It's got this sort of like magnetism that just draws people in. And that didn't really occur to me, like going into this conversation, thinking about, the state fair, how people come from far and wide to see crazy things like ostrich burgers and giant turkey legs and donuts as big as your face.
That's right.
I mean, that draws me in. But this idea that generosity just has this magnetism, you can't help but get drawn to it.
Yeah.
And sort of, you just don't want to be anywhere else but where giving is and generosity is.
Yeah.
And it's humbling and it's exciting.
I think at the very least, a lot of us have been attracted to those stories that we see online, those pay it forward acts. Maybe it's in the drive-through and somebody has paid for the meal behind them. And then that person pays for the meal behind them, and so on and so forth. I think I remember a couple of years ago, there was actually, I think they came up with a Guinness Book of World Records for the number of pay it forwards that was in a drive-through. And it was some outrageous number, just all day long, maybe even for a couple of days, this pay it forward act had been going on. And it's wild to see. So yeah, I'm with you that generosity is attractive. It makes people curious and wanting to be a part of it.
And you just can't help but want to participate.
That's right. So let's see, number 4, generosity. Yes, generosity, it gives more than what we're actually asking it to. In what we're offering to another person, it may be in a couple of dollars. It may be in some time that we spend with them. It may be in a cup of coffee that we pick up. But really, we're giving more of ourselves, and we're giving more to that other person than we realize. It's in relationship building that we're offering. It's in offering of love, of grace to another person that might be in the midst of some strife that they're holding on to. We're giving more than we realize in generosity.
Absolutely. It's so easy, I think, to get just tied into the thing that we're giving, the can of food or the couple dollars or the time that we're committing. But it's realizing that, these are just the tangible things. But the intangibles that expound out from that generosity is unimaginable, and how God will use those intangibles in ways that we can't even fathom and think of. It's pretty amazing.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so point number 5.
Point number 5. Generosity gets me out of the picture.
Ooh, this is a tough one.
It is. I think this is my favorite one, though. It gets me out of the picture, I think oftentimes our generosity, like, we think about how it affects us. Right? When we give our time, it's like, okay, I gotta, this Saturday, I gotta help volunteer. I could be doing other things around the house or going out enjoying the beautiful weather. But this humility that we've talked about, it gets us out of the way and allows God to move in that space that we vacated. And just this act of stepping aside. It's amazing.
Certainly there's something to say about a little bit of sacrifice that's involved in that, because if you think about generosity as giving from your excess, then you are still staying well within your comfort. But if there is a level of generosity that you can get to in which you are giving from that place of comfort to where you're maybe losing a little bit, that's another way of getting yourself out of the picture and really diving into the needs of another person.
Absolutely.
So number 6, and this one, gosh, I hope this one hits home. It's about generosity and its difference from giving. Generosity is something amazing when we consider it alongside giving, because giving is good. Giving to another person, giving to an organization, giving to a church even, that's good. But generosity in these different facets that we've talked about, and how it affects another person, and how it creates relationships and bonds between others, and how it grows our relationship with God even. Generosity, it changes. It changes us. It changes the people around us. Generosity is one of those things that has the full potential to change the world. And we know that from many places. We know that from ways in which you might have participated and changed your small world in acting generosity, or if someone acting generously towards you Maybe that's early on in your career or in your school. Maybe that's when you were having your first kids and you didn't know exactly what to do, but someone gave to you generously so that you didn't have to worry about those basic needs, and you were able to worry about the next step of life, which was living it, enjoying it, delighting in it, being a part of it. Do you begin to see how generosity changes things? Because it does. In fact, this is one thing that Jesus harps on over and over in this generous relationship that Jesus continues to offer to people in the gospel messages and as well to us today. It's never about this transactional space between Jesus and another person. It's about relationship. Jesus is always after that relationship, teaching the disciples over and over again until finally they get to a point where they understand. And way later on, it's passed on in late in Acts chapter 20, where Paul is leaving his community. And his community is so sad that he is departing from them. They have so thoroughly enjoyed his time, his presence, his gifts. And the last thing that Paul tells them as they are crying for him to stay a little bit longer is listen to the words of Jesus. It is better to give than to receive. After the gospel messages, Jesus is still speaking to this community and yet still to us today. It is better to give than to receive. So we listed off a lot of points, and I hope that one of them stuck with you. I hope that one of them is something that will maybe cause a little bit of change for you. And I hope it's for your life, but I'll pray and I'll ask that it's for this next season that we're walking into. It's a season of Thanksgiving, yes, but a season of holiday and excess in many ways, just like this North Carolina State Fair. Now, we hope that you have something within this message, something within this season that begs of you, attracts you, brings you into the idea of how you might be generous within your family, within your church, within your structure of living. What might you change during this season in order to participate in generosity? It's a question for you to think about and answer for yourself. We'd love to be in conversation with you. Let this conversation go on amongst you and your friends and your family. Come and talk to Pastor Ray and I about it anytime. Come and talk to Sean about it. He's got plenty to say. We'd love to be a part of that conversation with you. But all these spaces, we are praying for you in all the ways that God is generous in your life so that you are abounding in love and grace and forgiveness that is then shared with others. Friends, thank you for joining us each and every week. We're looking forward to the next season that we walk in with you in this At the Table series. And again, as always, we invite you to share these videos with someone else who might need a little bit of inspiration, a short word to walk in faith by. We'll see you next time.
Restless season when it may not be red as a rose is yet. It may not be strong as the old trees, but love planted deeply becomes what it ought to, and hearts given freely become what they ought to, and love given freely becomes what it ought to be. Yeah, what it ought to